In the quiet countryside of Buckinghamshire, behind high hedges and guarded gates, a war was being fought in silence. There were no tanks, no artillery, no roaring battles, only the relentless tapping of typewriters, the whirring of early computers, and the anxious murmurs of men and women whose task was as invisible as it was critical. This was Bletchley Park, the secret heart of Britain's code-breaking effort, where some of the greatest minds of the era labored to crack the Enigma, the unbreakable German cipher that threatened to change the course of World War II. The story begins with a threat unlike any conventional battlefield. The German military, confident in its cryptographic technology, communicated orders via the Enigma machine, believing its codes to be unbreakable. Every naval maneuver, troop movement, and supply convoy was encrypted, transmitted over radio waves, and assumed safe from interception. For the Allies, breaking Enigma was a matter of survival. If the Germans could keep their communications secret, the Atlantic convoys would be slaughtered, the North African campaigns would fail, and the Allied forces would be blind in the face of German strategy. Bletchley Park became the epicenter of the race against time. Scientists, mathematicians, linguists, chess champions, and puzzle enthusiasts converged in a sprawling estate transformed into a fortress of intellect. Their work was governed by secrecy so absolute that even their families could not know the magnitude of their contribution. In these halls, minds became weapons, and logic became ammunition. Every intercepted message was a puzzle. Every breakthrough, a potential turning point in a war that raged far from the serene lawns of Buckinghamshire. The breaking of Enigma was not instantaneous. It required years of painstaking effort. Mathematicians like Alan Turing and his colleagues devised machines, the bombs, that could process thousands of possible settings, searching for patterns in a system designed to be incomprehensible. Each day brought new challenges. The Germans changed codes daily, rotated rotors and modified key sheets, believing their communications impenetrable. But Bletchley Park was relentless, driven by ingenuity, determination, and the knowledge that each deciphered message could save countless lives on the front lines. The work was both collaborative and isolated. Teams worked in rooms filled with desks, maps, and early computing devices, analyzing intercepted transmissions, testing hypotheses, and cross-referencing data. Women formed the backbone of many operations, performing calculations, managing punch cards, and maintaining the flow of information. Their role was essential, often underappreciated at the time, but they formed the lifeblood of Bletchley Park's intelligence engine. Successes were measured not in headlines or medals, but in subtle shifts on the battlefield. Convoys redirected, U-boat wolfpacks intercepted, and surprise attacks foiled, all traced back to a decoded message typed by hands that had never seen the ocean or a battlefield. The tension inside Bletchley Park was constant. Failure could mean catastrophe. Success had to remain hidden to preserve the advantage. Messages were sent to commanders with caution, carefully timed to avoid revealing the source of intelligence. Every interception had to be evaluated for authenticity. Every decrypted code analyzed for potential deception by the enemy. The war outside the estate's walls pressed on, but within, battles were fought with numbers, letters, and machines that seemed almost magical in their ability to reveal secrets. One of the most famous moments came during the Battle of the Atlantic, when deciphered Enigma messages allowed Allied ships to evade German U-boats, turning a deadly campaign into a manageable struggle. Convoys that had been vulnerable were rerouted, attacks avoided, and supply lines preserved. The tide of battle began to shift not with cannons or tanks, but with intellect, pattern recognition, and the quiet genius of codebreakers working in obscurity. The human cost of secrecy was immense. Codebreakers could not discuss their work, not with colleagues outside the walls, not with family, not even in casual conversation. Their successes went unrecognized for decades, their contributions hidden under layers of classification and secrecy. Yet their dedication never wavered. The knowledge that their work could mean life or death for thousands, that a single breakthrough could alter the course of campaigns, fueled every long night and exhausting day. Bletchley Park's legacy extends far beyond the immediate outcomes of the war. The techniques, machines, and methods developed to crack Enigma laid the foundations for modern computing and information theory. Alan Turing's work, and that of countless others, became the cornerstone of digital technology, artificial intelligence, and cryptography. The battle of minds fought in silence against a seemingly invincible code continues to influence the modern world. Ultimately, the story of Bletchley Park is a story of courage, intellect, and perseverance. It is about ordinary individuals performing extraordinary feats in extraordinary circumstances. It is a testament to the power of human ingenuity and the enduring impact of those who fight wars not with guns, but with knowledge, analysis, and the unwavering belief that the impossible can be made possible. The Codebreakers' triumph over Enigma reminds us that in war, victory is not always measured in destruction or conquest. Sometimes it is measured in foresight, insight, and the ability to see patterns where others see only chaos. Bletchley Park stands as a monument not to the noise of battle, but to the silent, invisible power of the human mind. A power that turned the tide of World War II and reshaped the future of technology and intelligence. In the stillness of the English countryside, an unassuming estate hid one of the greatest secrets of World War II. Bletchley Park, with its sprawling lawns and Victorian architecture, appeared to outsiders as nothing more than a quiet manor. But inside its walls, a different war was being waged, a war of intellect, mathematics, and relentless mental endurance. This was a battlefield where victories were silent, invisible, and decisive, fought not with guns or tanks, but with logic, calculation, and ingenuity. The threat was extraordinary. Germany's Enigma machine, a cipher device of staggering complexity, encrypted communications across every branch of the Wehrmacht, the Luftwaffe, and the Kriegsmarine. Orders that directed troop movements, supply convoys, and U-boat attacks traversed the radio waves, protected by a code that the Germans believed to be unbreakable. Every day, countless Allied lives hung in the balance, dependent on deciphering messages that could determine victory or defeat in campaigns spanning Europe, Africa, and the Atlantic. The British government recognized that conventional forces alone could not counter this threat. They needed a force of minds, a collective of extraordinary talent capable of unraveling the seemingly impossible. Mathematicians, linguists, chess champions, engineers, and cryptographers were recruited, often plucked from universities, private practice, and government positions. Among them was Alan Turing, whose brilliance in mathematics and logic would prove pivotal. Others, like Gordon Welchman, Dilly Knox, and Joan Clark, brought complementary skills, forming a team whose collective intellect would become the backbone of Allied cryptanalysis. From the outset, secrecy was paramount. Bletchley Park operated under a veil of absolute confidentiality. Guards patrolled the gates. Orders forbade the disclosure of work to family or friends, and even communication within the park was carefully controlled. Each individual understood that their success depended not only on skill but on silence. To reveal even a fragment of their progress could compromise operations and cost lives.
The pressure was immense, but the stakes instilled a sense of purpose that drove the staff through long hours, exhaustion, and uncertainty. Work at Bletchley Park was methodical, intense, and often frustrating. Intercepted Enigma messages arrived daily from across Europe, carried by wireless operators, spies, and reconnaissance teams. These messages were incomprehensible in their raw form. Scrambled letters, random sequences, a puzzle designed to be impossible to solve. Early attempts at manual decryption yielded little success. Each code employed a complex combination of rotors, plugboard settings, and daily key sheets. Every day, a new permutation created millions of possibilities, ensuring that brute force attempts were futile. To meet this challenge, the codebreakers relied on intellect, pattern recognition, and innovation. Alan Turing proposed the construction of electromechanical machines, the bomb, that could process vast numbers of possibilities rapidly, reducing the time required to test potential Enigma settings. These machines, large, intricate, and mechanically sophisticated, were capable of performing the repetitive computations that human minds could not sustain for extended periods of time. Alongside them, teams of mathematicians worked tirelessly to develop algorithms, identify weaknesses in the cipher, and predict the daily keys used by the German operators. Every success was painstakingly verified. A single decrypted message could contain errors, traps, or deliberate misinformation planted by the Germans. Analysts had to cross-reference intercepted communications, confirm details against known intelligence, and evaluate the plausibility of the content. A misstep could alert the enemy to the breach, undoing weeks of labor and exposing Allied operations to risk. Each decoded message was a fragile triumph, celebrated quietly and immediately acted upon with strategic precision. The human element was as vital as the machines. Women formed the backbone of many operational functions, performing critical calculations, operating teleprinters, and managing the flow of information. Their work ensured that decrypted messages were translated, analyzed, and delivered to the appropriate command centers without delay. Despite often being overlooked in historical accounts, their contributions were indispensable, demonstrating that codebreaking was a collaborative effort requiring diverse expertise and extraordinary dedication. Tensions ran high as the war pressed on. The Battle of the Atlantic, a campaign to protect supply convoys from German U-boats, was particularly urgent. Each message intercepted from the Kriegsmarine carried information that could determine the survival of hundreds of ships and thousands of sailors. Analysts worked day and night, identifying U-boat positions, predicting patrol patterns, and directing convoys along safer routes. The accuracy of these predictions, derived entirely from deciphered codes, saved countless lives and materially affected the course of the war. Amid the relentless work, moments of ingenuity and improvisation emerged. When patterns were not immediately apparent, codebreakers experimented with frequency analysis, linguistic insights, and statistical methods. They exploited operator errors, repeated phrases, and procedural habits to gain leverage over the machine's complexity. Each breakthrough was a combination of scientific method, creative thinking, and perseverance, reflecting the extraordinary adaptability of the human mind under pressure. By the end of this first phase, Bletchley Park had established itself as a nerve center of strategic intelligence. It was a place where ordinary men and women achieved extraordinary results, transforming invisible calculations into tangible battlefield advantages. Each decrypted Enigma message represented not just information, but lives saved, battles won, and a crucial step toward Allied victory. The codebreakers' labor remained largely invisible to the public, their triumphs uncelebrated at the time, yet their impact was felt in every theater of the war. The story of Bletchley Park reminds us that in modern warfare, intellect and information can rival the power of armies and artillery. The quiet genius of the codebreakers, working tirelessly in obscurity, became a decisive weapon that shifted the balance in favor of the Allies. As they cracked the Enigma, they revealed the profound truth that victory could be achieved not only on the battlefield, but in the mind, through insight, analysis, and relentless ingenuity.
As the work progressed, Bletchley Park became a hive of constant activity. The arrival of intercepted Enigma messages never ceased. Wireless operators across Europe sent thousands of messages, encrypted and rotating codes that changed daily. Each message was a puzzle, with potentially catastrophic consequences if misinterpreted. Teams of analysts divided the work meticulously, assigning specific rotors, cipher settings, and key sheets to specialized groups. The air hummed with concentration as minds synchronized to decrypt the indecipherable. The Bombay machines, Turing's mechanical marvels, became the backbone of the operation. Rows of these electromechanical devices clattered and whirred in synchronized rhythm, testing permutations at unprecedented speed. Engineers meticulously maintained the machines, adjusting levers, lubricating gears, and recalibrating electrical circuits to maximize efficiency. Each machine represented a marriage of ingenuity and labor, a physical manifestation of the battle of minds taking place. Women played an essential role, not only in operating the Bombay machines, but also in performing calculations manually when machines could not keep up with the volume of intercepted messages. These calculations were painstaking and precise, requiring long hours of concentration. Mistakes could have lethal consequences. An error in interpreting coordinates for a convoy could mean hundreds of lives lost. Yet the women of Bletchley Park worked tirelessly, embodying the discipline and ingenuity necessary for success. The first successes were exhilarating. Analysts began recognizing patterns, identifying repeated phrases, and exploiting operator errors. Some German operators, in their overconfidence, repeated keys or predictable phrases, giving the codebreakers small footholds in a seemingly impenetrable fortress of secrecy. Each breakthrough, no matter how small, was celebrated in whispered conversations and private notes. These victories, though invisible to the public, had immediate tactical effects, allowing convoys to avoid ambushes and supplying the Allies with invaluable intelligence. Beyond the machines, collaboration was key. Teams of mathematicians, linguists, and cryptographers shared insights, tested theories, and refined techniques. The combination of different disciplines created a synergy that accelerated problem-solving. Chess champions applied strategic thinking to pattern recognition. Linguists spotted anomalies in syntax and phrasing. Engineers adapted machinery to better handle complex calculations. The diversity of talent turned Bletchley Park into a laboratory of intelligence where innovation thrived. Strategic coordination with Allied forces was critical. Intelligence from decrypted Enigma messages had to be conveyed carefully to military commanders without revealing the source. Analysts developed protocols to ensure that information could be acted upon without compromising security. Every operation, from naval convoys to air raids, was informed by insights derived from the secret work inside the estate. The success of the Allies increasingly depended on the unseen efforts of these codebreakers. The intensity of the work took a psychological toll. Long hours, extreme focus, and the weight of responsibility created stress and exhaustion. Some analysts slept at desks or in adjoining rooms. The silence outside the workrooms contrasted sharply with the mental cacophony inside. Every intercepted message could be critical. Every error could be deadly. Yet the dedication of the personnel never wavered.
They were acutely aware that their intellectual labor had the potential to turn the tide of the war. The impact of Bletchley Park extended beyond immediate military outcomes. As messages were decrypted and intelligence flowed to commanders, German forces became increasingly confounded by the unpredictability of Allied operations. The Allies were able to anticipate U-boat movements, protect convoys, and plan offensive strategies with a level of insight previously unimaginable. The Codebreakers' work created a strategic advantage that directly influenced the trajectory of the war in Europe. By mid-war, Bletchley Park had developed a systematic approach to intelligence. Rotating shifts ensured round-the-clock analysis, while improvements to machinery increased throughput. The staff became increasingly adept at predicting German tactics, understanding operational patterns, and adapting to evolving cipher techniques. The estate transformed into a living organism, with each team, each machine, and each calculation contributing to a single, coordinated effort to break the unbreakable. As Part 2 concludes, it is clear that Bletchley Park was more than a code-breaking center. It was a revolution in warfare. The combination of intellect, ingenuity, and meticulous coordination created a weapon that operated invisibly, yet decisively, shaping the course of battles, saving lives, and demonstrating the extraordinary power of the human mind.
The complexity of German encryption only grew as the war progressed. The Enigma machine settings became more sophisticated. Key sheets were rotated daily, and additional rotors were introduced. Yet, the ingenuity of Bletchley Park's staff kept pace. They developed enhanced techniques for identifying patterns, anticipating operator mistakes, and exploiting repetitions. Each new challenge prompted innovation, leading to more sophisticated bombs, refined algorithms, and improved intelligence workflows. The Battle of the Atlantic remained the most immediate test. German U-boats prowled the ocean, sinking merchant ships and threatening to sever the supply lines crucial for the Allied war effort. Bletchley Park's decryption work became the lifeline of the convoys. Analysts identified wolf pack movements, calculated patrol routes, and provided the Admiralty with actionable intelligence. Entire fleets of ships were rerouted, and countless sailors were spared by decisions based entirely on invisible analysis. The stakes could not have been higher, yet the personnel performed with remarkable precision under constant pressure. Coordination with military operations required ingenuity. Intelligence had to be disseminated carefully to ensure operational effectiveness while maintaining the secrecy of the source. Commanders were briefed on enemy positions and plans without ever being made aware of Bletchley Park's existence. These communications were carefully timed and coded, ensuring the advantage gained from breaking Enigma remained protected. It was a delicate balance between utility and concealment, one that required skill and discipline at every level. The human dimension was extraordinary. Analysts developed intuition for German operations, recognizing behavioral patterns in radio transmissions and anticipating the enemy's next moves. Women and men worked side by side, often under exhausting conditions, performing calculations, maintaining machines, and managing the flow of intelligence. Their collaboration, ingenuity, and perseverance created a collective mind capable of operating far beyond the sum of its parts. Beyond tactical outcomes, Bletchley Park had profound strategic implications. Intelligence derived from Enigma influenced key campaigns, including North Africa, Italy, and preparations for D-Day. The ability to anticipate German movements allowed the Allies to strike effectively, avoid ambushes, and optimize resource allocation. The Codebreakers' work created an invisible shield over operations, mitigating risk and enhancing the effectiveness of military planning.
Every success reinforced the importance of secrecy. The Germans remained unaware of the breach for years, attributing unexpected setbacks to luck or tactical brilliance rather than the invisible hand of Bletchley Park. The analysts understood that recognition would come only decades later. Their reward was measured in saved lives, successful operations, and the satisfaction of intellectual mastery over a seemingly insurmountable challenge. By the end of Part 3, Bletchley Park had proven that warfare could be fought in silence, with intellect and ingenuity as powerful as any artillery. The staff's relentless work had created a decisive advantage, demonstrating that information could be weaponized and that mastery of knowledge could shape the course of history.
As the war drew toward its climax, Bletchley Park's influence became even more pronounced. The intelligence produced by the Codebreakers shaped critical Allied decisions, from large-scale invasions to strategic bombings. Each operation carried the imprint of unseen minds working tirelessly to decrypt messages, predict enemy moves, and advise commanders in real time. The estate, once a quiet manor, had become the epicenter of an invisible war that would decide the fate of nations. The human story was as compelling as the technical achievements. Analysts worked around the clock, sometimes for days without rest, fueled by the urgency of their mission. Morale depended on shared purpose, camaraderie, and a sense of historical significance. Staff members took immense pride in their invisible victories, knowing that their labor could save thousands of lives and alter the trajectory of campaigns. They became the quiet heroes of a war fought in shadows, where intellect replaced bullets and strategy replaced brute force. The breakthroughs at Bletchley Park accelerated the pace of the war's conclusion. Convoys safely crossed the Atlantic, U-boat threats diminished, and Allied operations could be executed with foresight rather than uncertainty. The Codebreakers' work provided a foundation for planning D-Day, enabling commanders to anticipate German defenses and choose landing sites that would maximize success. Every decrypted message contributed to a mosaic of intelligence that shaped victory. After the war, recognition for Bletchley Park's achievements was slow in coming. The extreme secrecy that had protected operations during the conflict extended into peacetime, leaving many contributors unacknowledged for decades. Yet the significance of their work was undeniable. The breaking of Enigma not only saved lives and shortened the war, but also laid the groundwork for modern computing, cryptography, and intelligence operations. The legacy of Bletchley Park endures. It is a testament to the power of intellect, collaboration, and perseverance. It demonstrates that in war, knowledge can be a weapon, and the human mind can be a decisive instrument. The Codebreakers' triumph over Enigma remains one of the most remarkable examples of ingenuity in history, where silence, calculation, and intellect reshaped the battlefield and altered the course of a global conflict. Ultimately, Bletchley Park's story is about the extraordinary impact of ordinary individuals performing extraordinary tasks. Their invisible work turned the tide of war, protected lives, and demonstrated that strategy and intellect could rival even the most powerful armies. It reminds us that victory is not always measured in bullets or blood, but often in the quiet mastery of knowledge, the courage to innovate, and the determination to see the impossible made possible.